I've spent a lot of time in the public and voluntary sector, so I've come across more than my fair share of silly rules and bureaucracy. One of my favourites was around 12 years ago when I was trying to remove a 45p a week allowance for a group of staff, and there was absolute uproar, and it dated back to the 1940s, and it was a cigarette allowance that people had, and it was absolute uproar trying to remove it. So I understand the rules around such things. Anyway, I'm going to try to explain what my policy is, what's involved in it, and why it needs committing to Room 101. And I need to be honest and say that some of this I've done in order to fit into organisations, and maybe I was following orders and maybe I wasn't. You can be the judge of that. But my policy is quite topical because we're coming up to Euro 2016 and the Olympics. It's the working practices that some organisations put in place to manage the activities of staff during sporting events like that, and things like royal weddings and Christmas and so on. And we have them because some organisations panic about what staff will do and how they will behave during such times, and the issues of vicarious liability start to come into play. We have them because in some organisations, health and safety and equality and diversity run roughshod over common sense and tie us up in knots. And we have them because deep down, some employers just don't trust their staff to do the right thing. So in this policy that I'm going to write, that's going to apply to us all here, this is the special rules that we have to manage what we do during Euro 2016 and other such events. I recognise it's important to you. You're going to want to celebrate some things, but I'm a little bit worried about our organisational reputation. So I'm going to point out that all these special flexible working arrangements that I'm going to give you, they're temporary. They're a privilege and not a right. And it's not something that's going to carry on beyond the end of the tournament. I'm going to detail how all these flexible working arrangements are going to work. So if you want to start later, finish earlier, take longer lunches, there are rules around such things. And there are rules on how I'm going to expect you to make that time up, even to the nearest 5 minutes. So there'll be special administration around such things. If you want to book annual leave, you're going to need to ask well in advance and coordinate that not just with your line manager but anybody else in your team, because we need to make sure the service to the customers comes first, even though the customers are probably just as interested in the tournament as we are, and therefore our customer service requirements won't be as high. It doesn't really matter because I want you to work in a certain way. I'm going to make sure that we monitor sickness absence more robustly. So I'm suspending the self-certification rule for the first 7 days of absence, and I'm going to require medical evidence for any sickness absence the day following or the day of an important match. And if you're more than 5 minutes late, it'll trigger an automatic warning on the following day. I should also point out that the normal rules around drinking alcohol during working days continue to apply, but should let you know as well there will be random testing the following day to make sure that nobody's over the limit. Because we could be vicariously liable for anything you do, so we need to be really, really careful. And I should also cover the issue that's been asked of me about whether you can put a flag on the company vehicle. Well, aside from the obvious health and safety risks of putting a flag on the company vehicle, we serve a very diverse community, and I don't want to portray a potentially offensive national image to a wide range of customers. So unfortunately, for both health and safety and E&D reasons, that's prohibited. And a word of warning about Christmas. If any of that behaviour from last Christmas gets repeated during this tournament, then I'm not averse to cancelling Christmas altogether. And certainly, we won't be referring to it as Christmas anymore. It's holiday celebrations, because Christmas has too many religious connections for me to feel comfortable with. So that's my policy, and it needs to go into Room 101 for a few reasons. It's about putting too many rules in place, and it's about not trusting staff. It's supposedly championing flexibility, but it's doing no such thing because it's stifling it, and it's removing any flexibility, and it's silly. It's going too far down the line of letting health and safety and equality and diversity rule the roost over common sense and employee engagement. And it's missing a trick about performance, productivity, and employee engagement. And finally, this has to go in Room 101, because I wrote this policy at a previous place of work, and it's quite cathartic for me to cleanse my shame in this way and commit this policy to Room 101. Please do it for me. Thank you.